Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy here, and we are back. We're over in Zashato's house today. Kind of a rare thing to happen, but he put out this video the other day, the must-pulls of Fae, quote-unquote must-pulls, by the way. I didn't watch the whole video, I only watched the first half of it, but basically, Homeboy was just saying there's not really anything that is an actual must-pull, as in, if you don't pull this unit, you're just gonna die constantly. There's nothing in the game that's of that nature, but I will say at the very least that there are certain units that, I mean, pulling them will certainly give you a massive advantage, right? So to say those types of characters aren't a must-pull, I think really there is no must-pull in the game, but there are definitely wise things that you can pull. So that's what we're going to be covering today here. How can you correctly manage your orb spending and currency spending? How can you be the most strategic about what types of units you're going for and things of that nature? Now, I've actually said this many times. I don't think it's worth going for a plus 10 in this game anymore. You're better off going for 11 separate different types of units that can fill different roles, as opposed to focusing on one thing and going for a plus 10 on that. Really, like, merges have been so devalued in this game, it's ridiculous. So let's take a look at an example of a character someone might want a plus 10 because it's their favorite. Alright, let's say Felix, right? Brave Felix. He's probably the best unit in the game right now. He's a really good unit. He can do all sorts of different roles. He's a nice player phaser. He's a nice Gale Forcer. He's a nice Omni tank. He can do quite a lot of different things, right? So you could, and of course him being the best unit in the game, that may make people think, oh, I should probably plus 10 this unit. I don't think that's the case. I think what you want to do is get your one copy and then stop. And then instead of getting 10 more copies of Felix that you would then waste into getting merges on him, you're probably better off getting 10 separate units that can fill all sorts of other different roles that Felix can't do. So, for example, Felix, as good as he is and as well-versed as he is, he's no armor-type unit, so he can't run save skills. So instead of getting 11 copies of him, why not just get some separate save units, like a near saver, a far saver. You could also mix it up. You can get some support units like Robin, who also puts up the ice tiles. You can get maybe some attuned heroes that can be fodder banks while also being units, and so on and so forth. So really, merging in this game is so devalued right now. There is 0 point in going for a plus 10, unless you're just playing the game for fun and you just want to build up your favorites. Then in that case, by all means. But for the people that are trying to take the game seriously, quote-unquote serious, as seriously as you can take a game like this, really, if you're trying to do that and trying to be strategic about your currency spending, then I think, yeah, like just getting one copy of a bunch of assorted units that can fill all the different roles you may want is going to be better in the long run. Now, let's take a look a little bit at some of the units that I think may, quote-unquote, be a must-summon. The first, of course, it's impossible to do this without talking about Emblem Heroes. Now, what's really good about them, of course, is that they bring the Emblem Ring, which is... the best way I can describe the Emblem Ring is that it's just a second Sacred Seal. Because once you summon a copy of the unit, it's like a Sacred Seal you can then put on anyone you want. So it's an unlimited resource. It's a very good resource at that. Look at how good this is. You get Canto 3 if you're a melee type, or Canto 2 if you're a ranged type, with +1 movement, with bonus damage on your special based on how many movement you did. Like, this is ridiculous, dude. This is insane. And the fact that you can give it to anybody is just gross. So it's going to unlock so many doors for a lot of characters, particularly, like, Sigurd's Ring isn't really so much of a door opener for builds. Like, I would say Mart's definitely is, because he gives you the -1 cooldown, which can make it easier to run a bunch of different specials, like Miracle or AoEs and things like that. So Mart's Ring is more of a build opener, whereas Sigurd's Ring is a more of a in-your-face, I'm going to beat the crap out of you type of thing. So, yeah, the Emblem Rings, all of them. All 4 of the current Emblem Rings, I think, are just phenomenal. For all the different things that they can do, they have a wide variety of effects. So you really can't go wrong summoning for the Emblem Heroes. The only downside, of course, is that they're on the Legendary, Mythic, and Emblem banners, which suck. Look at this, 12 featured units and triple color sharing on every color. That is absurd. And you can't even spark unless you have the Fate Pass. So that just makes it even worse. That's like insult to injury. So, I don't know, man. I gotta say, like, you should probably be focusing on going for the Emblem Heroes. They're as close to being a must-pull, quote-unquote, in this game as possible, without actually being a must-pull. So, there we go for the Emblem Heroes. Now, we could talk a little bit about Legendary Heroes as well, since we're over here. So, the last Legendary Hero we got was Shez, and he sucks. Well, I shouldn't say he sucks, but he's not impressive, I think is more the term I would want to go for. He's not really breaking any molds. The one role I think he'd be really good at is a Gale Forcing role for Aether Raid's offense, and he can't even be ran there because he's a legendary hero that you can't bless. So, a really awkward design for this guy. I don't think they kind of nailed him in terms of like his kit, like what he's trying to do. I don't think he's accomplishing the correct things. So I would say definitely don't bother with him. Now, Mythic Heroes, we had these two over here. Now, this is kind of a special case, because these guys were just released as bait to suction as many orbs away from people summoning from the Brave banner, which was the next banner released after them. So, I think them being as insane as they were is maybe an anomaly, but they are both really good, and it was very obvious to tell. Like, Peko Mama was clearly going to be a game changer for defense teams, and that's exactly what she did. This guy, maybe not so clear that he was going to break anything, but I think in practice, he actually is an insane melee type of unit. So both of them were really good, and for the most part, I think it was clean cut. Like, it was obvious both of them were going to be really good. Of course, Celica was really good. Her ring was a game changer for the time. So again, just more credibility that these Emblem Heroes are probably the primary focus. Legendary Corrin, I think, was a bit of a flop, with the one exception of his fodder beast skill, which is super whale bait. Now, I don't think anyone really cares about this other than the whales, and it's really just whale bait, really, this skill. It's 400 SP as opposed to 300, like all the other gold border skills for some reason. So if you care about arena scoring, which you really shouldn't, this is probably the best skill you can get. It's not a bad fodder skill either. It's just half of Warp Bubble. Warp Bubble basically against ranged enemies, which is good. But the real reason you would want this is for the scoring, and I can't recommend anyone summon for scoring. The scoring is like the most pointless thing to summon for in this game, mainly because where we are right now, the Grand Hero battle units just score really good anyway. So summoning for a 5-star exclusive unit that scores good seems like a very ancient type of mentality to have. Like, why would you summon for, I don't know, let's take some kind of recent, decently scoring unit for an example. Who do we want to go for here? Who scores pretty good that's not like just innately a legendary hero is what I'm looking for. Maybe if we go over here, we'll find someone a little better at that. Or over here, yeah, let's go over here. Okay, so let's take Na, for example, right? Na is actually the highest scoring unit in the game right now. So Na, if you were summoning her for her specifically to go for scoring, I don't think that's what you should be doing, because we already have Marnie, who scores basically a bin or two lower than her. It's not really by that much, and it's free to play. Like, you can easily just build up Marnie. Marnie is surprisingly one of the best units we've ever gotten for free. So, like, she's comparable to some of these 5-star exclusives anyway. So you're probably just better off if you care about arena score and things like that. I would say just build up the high scoring free to play units at this point, as opposed to summoning for like high scoring units that are banner exclusive. I don't think that's the way. So yeah, that was really the only good thing about Corrin, his B skill. Mythic Loki is kind of a tough one, because at the time she did definitely seem like a must-pull. But with the way that the game has progressed, I don't really think so anymore, and it would have been very hard to come to that conclusion when she released. Like, it wasn't as obvious where the game was headed. So, I mean, this one was, if she tricked you, then she is the trickster god, right? Like, she definitely got us. She got my orbs, I'll say that much. But yeah, for the most part, the Emblem Heroes are definitely the ones to go for. The Mythic Heroes, if you want to go for a +10 of an offense hero, I would say maybe. Because, like, that way you can reach max score in Aether Raid's offense. That's the only way you can do that. Definitely do not focus on defense Mythic Heroes getting them to +10 because it's irrelevant. A +10 Hathroon does not fare much better than a +0 Hathroon. All you really want her for is the Nectar support and the debuff on her weapon. So getting a +10 defense Mythic Hero just is pointless. Offense Mythic Heroes are the exact opposite, though, because they are raising your score with every merge. So if you are going to go for a +10, I think they are the only ones to maybe consider, is the offensive Mythic Heroes. So there we go for that. Legendary Heroes, basically a dud. Emblem Heroes and Mythic Heroes are pretty good. Alright, let's go over to the seasonal banners now. Now, these are also, again, you can only summon on these with, or spark on these with the Fey Pass. So you are very limited in what types of units you can get here, which also sucks because on the most recent one, I think all 4 or all 3 of the 5 stars are very good. So Asker is just like a incredible support unit. He's just duo Asker on crack, and then he's a melee Omni tank if he wants to be. So this guy's really good. He is really, really good, right? Like, he's almost akin to Hathroon, I would say. He's like a blessable Hathroon, because he's giving that insane support on his C skill, and then he's also giving the deep wounds protection, and then he's giving the he's giving Breath of Life 4 essentially support to allies. So he's doing so many different roles. He's also a god of fodder, distant bonus doubler, reopening. Like, come on, man, this guy's crazy. He also has a new beast special that you can use for fodder too if you want to go for that. So he's really good. And then the 2 armored units, of course, are both really good. Now, their fodder skills, I think, aren't really where it's at the moment. I think they kind of goofed up a little. Like, they definitely should have released these 2 prior to releasing Shield Fighter, because Shield Fighter is just better than both of these. So Far Save 4 and then also Near Save 4, they're both obviously very good, and they're both better, quote-unquote better, than the Tier 3 variants of their predecessors. But they're not better enough to a point where I would say this warrants summoning for. And really, considering that we just got Shield Fighter, which is just better, I think that kind of hurts the value of these as fodder skills right now. In the future, when they're easier to get, then yeah, obviously you want to make the upgrade. But for right now, definitely no. And then they also have other fodder skills too. They have this one here, Dragon Scales, which is kind of like Shield Fighter for dragons, but not quite as good. So it's like in a weird spot. It's good, but it's just not as good as Shield Fighter. So like I said, they kind of messed up by releasing Shield Fighter first before all the stuff over here. I think they just like accelerated it by a silly amount. So these 2 as units, though, maybe not counting the fodder, they're both really good units to go for. Over here, of course, I already talked about it, but Shield Fighter is ridiculous. This is also a duo hero too, and their duo skill is nuts. 2 turns of 2 rows of ice. In summoner duels, this is like insane, right? Like, the amount of protection you get from this, it's basically like having warp bubble, because the enemies can't warp to that space to attack if there's an ice tile there. So this fills so many roles. This is so crazy. This unit is ridiculous. And not only for usage, but also for fodder. As we said, Shield Fighter is pretty much the second coming of armored units. And it was easy to tell that too, right? So this brings us to the next point that I want to discuss here when it comes to orb spending. Now, instead of going for a +10, like I said, summon a variety of units is better, but also upgrading older units that are relevant, I think, is good. So we take a look at Gatry here. Now, Gatry is a god, right? After his refine, they really held it down with this boy. They gave him the goods. His base kit, on the other hand, maybe not so much. So it's definitely worthwhile to make that investment and make this guy a lot more competitive by giving him Shield Fighter, I would say. Not Shield Pulse, Shield Fighter. Yeah, so like just that extra edge, giving him access to a really good skill that is going to just accentuate how good his refine was already. These are the type of things you want to go for. Like, fodder... Right now, the fodder skills are so nuts. I mean, we're talking about Fiorm right now, but once we get over here, we can talk about Lagoo's friend and things like that. So, fodder as well. Once you know which units are dominating the game, like, for example, Peko Mama, she's a very dominant unit, but her base kit leaves a lot of room for improvement. So, like we said, Lagoo's friend, the best beast skill in the game. Also, you can give her distant bonus doubler, which is another ridiculous skill. So, yeah, like, instead of going for merges, why not do this? Because trust me when I say this will be a far bigger and more impactful upgrade to your character than going for a +1. Like, just getting an insane skill. Lagoo's friend changes her functionality entirely, because you're getting her to pre-charge Pavis or Aegis. Distant bonus doubler, of course, gives her stat reflection on bonuses while having distant counter. So it's just not even comparable going for this as opposed to going for merges. I don't know why anyone would bother with merges anymore. And to drive that point home, you're able to spark, of course, on the new heroes banners, and these are where we get a lot of the attuned and rearmed heroes. So the attuned heroes are just unbelievably valuable right now. Tamara, first of all, is a great unit. Like, she can definitely fill a role in the meta right now. She's a nice Omni tank, similar to Emblem Ike, but maybe a little worse, maybe a little better in some regards. And her fodder is just ridiculous, right? So we have Lagoo's Friend 4, we got Breath of Life 4, we got Time's Pulse Echo. All of these are really good skills. So summoning copies of Tamara is never going to be a bad thing. You get your one copy of her, you get to keep her, and then you can just use her for fodder to give those skills to somebody else who really wants it. Like, for example, Lagoo's Friend on her is very good. So I would have to also put a lot of value on the merges for the attuned and rearmed heroes in that regard. They're really good units to invest in. Just, even when Tamara ages out, that doesn't matter because she's still a fodder bank. So any copies of her that you've got, you can merge and then give her best skills to somebody else who is more recent and more likely to be like the flavor of the month unit. So there you guys go. Of course, we can take a quick look back here. We have Attuned Micaiah, again, like another game-changing unit who happens to be an attuned hero. Erica, at the time, definitely, I would say she was really good. She's fallen off a little because of Felix. Like, the next good melee unit they released is so good against her, has an insane matchup against her. That kind of overshadowed her for the time, but she's still a really solid unit. And then she also, of course, has Null Sea Echo, which is probably the best infantry echo skill, I want to say. Really, really powerful skill there. And then distant bonus doubler, of course. Can't go wrong with that fodder. And Gus, too. Like, she's just a clinic when it comes to fodder. So even if she has fallen off, it doesn't really matter because the fodder value is still definitely there. So yeah, hopefully this was insightful to people, just like showing you guys what you may want to summon for as opposed to just hoarding up orbs forever to go for a +10. That's not a fun way to play the game. I don't think I had fun playing the game that way. I used to do that, but once I started summoning on every banner, just like trying to get one copy of the new stuff, I started having a lot more fun because my units were more varied. I was getting like a bunch of different variety units that could fill different roles, and then also getting these attuned heroes allows me to get some good skills on other characters that are really good, but maybe they didn't have the best base kits, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're going to wrap up today. So just the TLDR of this. Where should you be focusing your orbs? I would say Emblem Heroes are the top priority, followed up closely by the attuned and rearmed heroes. And then if you want to go that extra mile for Aether Raids and score maximum, then the offensive Mythic Heroes. And unfortunate as that may be, the seasonal 5-stars, they end up being really good units, but at the same time, these are more a decision of whether or not you want to go that extra mile. So I'm going to have them a little bit lower on the totem pole than the attuned heroes and the emblem heroes, but still, if you've got the orbs to spare, then may not be a bad idea to pick up some of these that are really relevant. For example, like obviously Gulvig. It's going to be very obvious, though, when a unit like this comes out that it's like, okay, maybe I should try to get a copy of them. So, like, Gulvig would have been one of those. Definitely Fjorm would have been one of those. And then over here, if you need different armor types, if you've already got a Far Saver and a Near Saver, you probably don't need to go for these guys. But it could be a worthwhile investment if you want to go long-term. Asker as well, he's just an insane supporter. So, yeah, that's going to wrap us up for this video, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed what we were trying to convey here. And let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And I will catch y'all again on the flip side.